We started the week with MAGA's Melon-Viewed Messiah promising that he would, God forbid, if returned to the White House, repeal the Affordable Care Act, or as some people refer to it, Obamacare. And if you're asking yourself if this is Groundhog's Day, that's because he literally promised that he would do that for the better part of 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then stopped in 2020 once the pandemic hit. And he never repealed it. He also promised to replace it with something beautiful. Believe him. Obviously, that didn't happen either. But now he's promising, again, just to repeal it, just to end it, just to take it away. Sorry, diabetic grandma. Sorry, son with a heart condition. Sorry, wife with a high-risk pregnancy. No health care for you. Why? Because he doesn't care. Because Republicans don't care. They don't even pretend to care. So I started asking myself after seeing story after story all week long like this, what it is that voters think Republicans will do for them or are doing for them. Because they keep telling them they want to take away their health care, their Social Security. They want to give the richest tax breaks. They want to take all their social programs away. They want to stop feeding starving kids. Hell, they want to send kids to work. They want to dismantle public education. They want to put religion in schools. What is it that the voters think they offer them? Because while the Democrats are trying to make sure that we have a funded government and advocating for making sure that we have health care and that maybe aid goes to Ukraine and Israel, Republicans right now are expelling one of the many, probably expelling, criminals in their midst, George Santos. And oh, by the way, they're subpoenaing the president's son because of his bogus laptop. And they're trying to impeach every John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt with a D next to their name. That's what they're doing with our tax dollars. What are they doing for the American people? I mean, it's confounding to me why anyone would vote for them. And these questions make this week's guest perfect because she asks the questions too. And then she calls the shit out. And she does it all the time. And she does it better than just about anybody. Her name is Jess Piper. And if you're not already following her, you need to immediately. Jess is a born and bred Southerner, having spent childhood and young adulthood in several Southern states until she landed in Arkansas. She graduated with an ABA in English and an MA in education from the University of Arkansas. Jess is a fierce advocate for rural communities and public schools. She was an American literature teacher for 16 years and decided to run for a House seat in Missouri's 1st District in 2022. Although she lost the race, she continues her activism and is executive director of Blue Missouri. She also hosts an incredible podcast called Dirt Road Democrat. I feel like Jess is my Missouri sister from another mister, and I love talking to her. I know you're going to love her too. Enjoy. Welcome to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Jess Piper, I'm so excited that you're here on my podcast.
Hey, Joe, it's good to see you.
I mean, it's awesome to see you. It's awesome to have you just one-on-one because I've shared my time with my very dear friend Jill over at Red, Wine, and Blue, but now I get you all to myself. So I'm so excited.
And thank you. I love being here.
I was just listening to your Dirt Road Democrat podcast, and it's incredible. So we'll get to that at the end, but you're amazing. You are. I'm just going to read this thing because this is the truth. And if you guys aren't familiar with Jess yet, which I cannot imagine could be true, you need to get familiar with her fast. I want her to meet everyone in the world. I want everyone to meet her because if you don't have a TV show, and I'm in the next 3 years, I swear I will pull out my eyelashes one at a time on live stream. I'm not really saying that.
Maybe that would be a good TV show. There would be a lot of your people tune in for that one, Joe. You know, the love that you have from Twitter. So
much love that certain, I'll just say, I won't even say his name, that rhymes with Pit and Mouse, because he decided to jump into my mentions, and then that is over. And that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, I'm sure they would probably pay money to watch me pull my eyelashes out. But this is from the bio on your podcast. And I think this is the perfect sort of just like little snapshot to introduce people who might not be familiar with you. I don't know how that could be. Jess Piper is the lightning rod, the shield, and the sword for those who simply need to know that their voice is not alone. By the way, there's a grammatical error. Just know pissed.
This was not written by me, by the way. This is Adam, my producer.
Okay,
So
well,
I'm
tell
going to
Adam.
tell him about
Yeah,
this.
he needs to go. He needs to fix that one thing. It's supposed to say two. Jess Piper's the lightning rod, the shield, and the sword for those who simply need to know that their voice is not alone, but part of a broad and growing network of folks who see the same thing. Decades of failed red state policies leaving generations behind as schools, jobs, and healthcare abandoned poor areas. That is just you didn't write it, but that is a really good kind of just quick snapshot before we jump into the meat of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm born and bred rural person. I've always lived in rural spaces, and I look up and I see exactly what's going on, and people think that folks like me don't exist. We're some kind of unicorn or something, but no, we're here. There are a lot of rural progressive folks.
So let's talk about that. Because I looked at this tweet. I still call them tweets, and there was a thread that you tweeted. And here is what it says. Republicans have controlled the Missouri legislature since 2002, and they've run this state into the ground. What's their legacy after 2 decades in power? Our roads are crumbling. 30% of Missouri public schools are on a 4-day school week, and 10 rural hospitals have closed. Our rich Missouri farmland has been sold off to foreign interests and big money monoculture corporations that openly funnel manure into our rural waterways. Wow, what? With the Missouri GOP's blessing. The GOP overturned local control of CAFOs in 2019. They're so drunk on their own power that they think you won't notice that they cause the very same problems they complain about. But I know you better than that, friend. I know you see their shameful track record just as plain as I do. And we've got to do something about it. And then you talk about the solution. The solution is you and me and a few thousand other folks who understand that the way we've been doing things for the last 20 years just hasn't worked. And it's high past time the grassroots folks like us band together and make sure every Democratic nominee puts their name on the ballot and has the support they need to fight as fiercely as we want and need them to. And if you want to make sure we're fighting like hell in every corner of the state, you need to be part of Blue Missouri. Help us fund nominees on every ballot. You're not just identifying a problem and doing nothing about it. You're identifying a problem and you have a plan. So let's talk about that. I mean, let's talk about Blue Missouri. Let's talk about this plan to get Democrats out there.
So last year, Missouri, 40% of the seats went uncontested. That means we have 163 seats, and that means 66 representatives walked down to Jeff City without so much as a job interview. They never had to get a website. They never had to talk to voters. They never had to go to a forum. They didn't have to answer questions. They didn't have to do shit. They walked down to Jeff City and got that job. And they can be as extremist as they want because no one is running against them. And so after, so many years, I call, I email, I do everything I can to contact my representatives. They don't care, Joe, they don't care. They don't call me back. They don't answer my questions, and they don't have to because they have no opposition. They are safe where they are. So my first step was to run myself, to say if nobody else is going to do it, because we didn't have anyone on the ballot in 20. And I'd had enough. I came home and told my husband, I'm going to run because nobody else is doing it, right? Mm-hmm. That's the problem. And that's the problem, not just in Missouri, but in Ohio and in Iowa and in Nebraska and in Texas and all of these states that lean red or are red. They don't have candidates. They don't have Democratic nominees.
And part of the reason for that, I'm guessing, but you can definitely speak to that, is it feels as though the Democratic Party has largely just sort of abandoned these red states and walked away and sort of just said, we'll make these votes up elsewhere. But that's not true, right? I mean, when you really talk about what the people want and need, and you really explain to them, these are things that we can offer you if you vote Democratic, then you can create, more Democratic votes in these red states. But why does it feel as though the Democratic Party's walked away from, let's just say, Missouri?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not sending in any money into Missouri. So the National Party says Missouri's too red. It's too far gone. They put their hands up and they walk away. And then what happens in state parties is that in St. Louis, where the bulk of the Democrats are in Missouri, they look to districts like mine 5 hours away in the middle of the sticks and say, that district is too red. And then they walk away. So you have these huge voids in states and then in communities where people aren't hearing Democratic messages. And I'm not just talking about for a couple of years, but for decades, because no one has been here. If you don't have candidates on the ballot, there is no one knocking a door. There is no one telling people, we want you happy, healthy, and educated, and this is how we'll do it. All they hear is this siloed information. They hear, Fox and Breitbart, and Newsmax, and they think that the Democrats really are demonic. They may drink blood. They may want to indoctrinate children because that's all they hear.
Right. And it's, first of all, I think it's incredibly brave that you're knocking doors, knowing, first of all, I've heard you talk about, like, you might knock a door and there's a good chance that the person behind that door has a gun.
Yeah.
But there's also a good chance that they do think that, oh, this is a blood drinking Democrat, demonic Democrat. Like, what has that been like?
It was most of the time, I have to tell you, it was fantastic. I didn't have any issues, but it's different knocking doors in the country because it's not necessarily, people haven't done it and people aren't super open to someone like driving down their driveway because we have long drives, um, but I'm white, as white as they come. And so I'm not quite as scary to them as what other people might be. And so I mean, in good conscience, I couldn't have some folks out knocking doors for me because I'm in the middle of nowhere. And it's like you said, there are guns behind the doors. If nothing else, I didn't want my friends to have the police called on them, because they're knocking doors and walking in small towns. So I do love my community, but I also know some of the folks, that other people would be knocking doors for. So I'm very mindful of that fact.
And what has surprised you about the kinds of things that they've said or that the conversations that you've had? I mean, they can't be what I opened with, they can't be feeling real great about how things are going with, crumbling roads and 4-day school weeks. And you've talked about not being able to buy milk. There's no place to buy milk in your town. So when you're knocking on these doors, having these conversations with people, how are they feeling? What has anything surprised you in the things that they've said?
Yeah. Well, the biggest surprise was a lot of folks telling me they couldn't vote for me because they were a Christian. And so that kind of knocks you down because they think that, Democrats are not Christians and cannot be Christians. And other than that, a lot of people are confused about what's going on at the state. They would talk about Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and while they're talking about their road not having a shoulder. And I'm like, friend, Joe Biden doesn't know where Maryville is, but your representative does, and he's the one who did this. I had one woman, I didn't put that I was a Democrat on my literature, which was smart on my part, but people would take it and flip it over and they'd read it and be excited and then find out I was a Democrat. And I was talking to a lady whose kid went to a 4-day school week. They had just gone to 4 days. And she said, well, I see you're a teacher. And I said, yep. And I thought, this is where I've got her. And she said, you can bring prayer back in school. And I was just blown away because you can pray anytime you want, right? Any kid can pray anytime they want, but you can't pray back 430 some odd days that your kid is going to miss K through 12.
Right.
430 some odd days that 5-day kids get that hers won't. You can't pray away lunch balances. Hungry kids, you can't eat at school. You can't pray that away either. You can pray in addition to having some action. But those were the things that kind of shocked me. And that's why it's important to have people knocking and talking.
It's a perfect opportunity for us to sort of incorporate, because you brought up, this 4-day school week. There's this, you talk a lot about this sort of sustained attack from the right on public education. And I wonder, first of all, why they would be doing that, what the correlation is to the 4-day school week and to the rollback of child labor laws and child labor protections. But let's just start with why. Why do Republicans want to dismantle public education?
It goes way back to the New Deal. We want to go back to FDR. It really does. That's when all of these libertarian leaning folks, all of these Republicans who were pissed that they were going to have to pay a lot in taxes. And they decided they didn't want to do this. And one of the biggest things that America spends a lot of money on is public education. And so that is on the chopping block for them. And believe it or not, it has been since the 30s. It's just been in the last few decades that they've been actually been able to get it going. The 4-day week is a result of defunding schools in Missouri. So over 2 decades, because the GOP has been in control for 2 decades, they have chipped away at school funding. So we are 50th in the nation for teacher pay. The starting teacher pay by the law in Missouri is $25,000 a year for a bachelor's degree. And then we are 49th in educational funding. And that means that most communities, like really poor communities like mine, rely on, property taxes and that sort of thing. And like you said, you mentioned, we don't have stores here. We have, a couple gas stations and smoke shops. And you were right. I cannot buy a gallon of milk in my town, but there are 3 places I can buy a pack of cigarettes if I wanted to.
So how does this benefit the people of Missouri? I mean, I don't really understand. What are Republicans doing instead of making sure that the schools are funded and the roads are not crumbling? What are they doing?
Well, right now they're sitting on $2 billion in surplus, 2 billion with a B. And every time you bring this up, they pivot. Look at the gun violence in St. Louis. Look at what's going on in Kansas City. Well, one, what's that got to do with schools? And 2, if we're going to talk about gun violence, who has control over, making sure that we have good laws in Missouri? That's the GOP. So everything they do is smoke and mirrors. Everything they do is, hey, look over here. Don't pay attention to what we've done. And that's why when you look at what Missouri lawmakers talk about a lot, it's all Joe Biden. It's all Hunter Biden. It's all that crap because they know they have no record to stand on. And people are, 1, voting against themselves often, but 2, we go back to it, they don't have anyone to vote for. There are no candidates. So it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy of awful.
So they're not expected to do anything because there's no accountability and there's no other alternative. Plus, they have this sort of like silo of information that, the regular Missourian isn't going to get access to because it's all Newsmax and Fox and OAN and their newspapers are all Republican leaning. And so it does this sort of like perpetuate itself and they don't have to ever do anything because they've already got it sort of set up in this very sweet spot. But it ends up hurting so many people. And it's not just Missouri, it's a lot of red states where this is happening. And I think with attention like yours, with people like you saying like, no, we let's invest a little time here. Please don't forget about us. Like, it feels like, you're sounding the alarm that all these Missourians, but also lots of Americans are just being left behind when ultimately, like, they shouldn't be at all. In fact, we could really harness so much more power and regain control and push back against Republicans who don't even want to govern. They just seem to want to rule, right?
They do. And once you get into this point, now we have Republicans fighting Republicans over who can be more extreme. We have acting senators that are taking boxes that are supposed to look like they're burning books and they're lighting them on fire with flamethrowers. I mean, our AG today came out and said that we are not going to take federal funds and we're not going to do what we should for foster kids in Missouri by calling them by their preferred name and pronoun. Like, it's just an attack on attack. And when you look around, you just want to shake up folks and say, friend, you don't have a road to drive on. We can't scoop snow off of it because it's chip and seal, because they don't pave our roads anymore, because your kid only goes to school 4 days a week. And now we're passing vouchers, which is going to take more money. And what do they want in 3? This is what I'm telling you they want. They want to close the schools. Betsy DeVos, and I have said this before, she was very upfront about it because someone asked her, what does school choice look like in a rural area? And she said, well, it looks like a kid on a farm. And let me tell you, everyone who lives in a rural area is not a farmer. We are not. It takes a lot of money to farm, But she said, I imagine this kid is on the farm. He can put on headphones and listen to great books while he's in the field. And then when he's done doing that work, he can find an apprenticeship at a John Deere dealership, which is 3 hours from me. And then when he's done with that part of the workday, he can get a tutor. So she imagines, and this is what all of them imagine, is that there are no more brick and mortar schools in rural places. My kid isn't worth it. None of these kids are worth it. You know what they should do, Joe, is roll back the child labor law And if you can't afford to send your kid to school, like you can't afford to send them to college, too bad. Send them to work.
Yeah, they do not believe, right, that all children are. They don't believe that education, public education, is a right. They believe that it should be reserved for those, and it's not public anyway, but education should be reserved for those who deserve it. And like those who
Yep.
deserve it in their wisdom are white, right? Well-to-do, essentially, usually. People of privilege who will happily use these children to fulfill these jobs that they don't want to take, that they don't want immigrants taking, because they want to keep them out too. And
Right.
Betsy DeVos, by the way, oh my gosh, we with her whole, they need guns for the bears, for
Yeah.
the remember that? In case that there's a bear in the woods. But this is a good also sort of pivot, because I want to talk to you about this, like, the sort of Christianizing of schools also, where you've got lots of people talking about, like you said, prayer in school, and you've got people like MAGA Mike Johnson and his wife Kelly, which I want to ask you about. That's her name, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
But they want to start indoctrinating more and more, basically, Christian nationalism into our education. And Mike Johnson is now 3 heartbeats away from the presidency of the United States. And you talk about how he believes the evangelical stuff that he says, but
Yeah.
that also goes hand in hand with the dismantlement of public education and keeping religion out of the schools. So let's start with, I guess let's just start with Mike Johnson. And a bit about where Mike Johnson comes from in terms of his upbringing and the evangelical world.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in the same world that he's from. He's a true believer. He really believes that with every step, he is hastening the return of Jesus Christ to gather Christians and take them into heaven and leave the rest of us here behind, which doesn't sound that bad sometimes.
Okay,
Leave me,
sign
leave
me
me
up.
behind, Mike.
Make sure you leave the wine.
So, but I mean, he really is a true believer, and not to knock anyone's beliefs, but when you put folks like this in power, he is like climate. What does climate change mean to him? He doesn't care. He thinks the world is ending any time now, right? All of these things don't matter to him. He thinks that he has a mandate from God to do what he's doing. And I'll tell you this, you know how Mike Johnson got into power? He wasn't opposed. He
Mm,
ran unopposed.
mm,
And that's so when I say that there's no reason, like you said, to just focus on Missouri, because this isn't a Missouri problem. Missouri politics literally bleed into all politics. Our AG, tries to, fight mask mandates when we had COVID. Now he tries to go after trans kids. They're not staying in their lane, they're coming out. And Republicans figured out a long time ago, you don't have to take over the federal government if you can take over enough states. And that's what they have done. And I'm telling you, I don't want to throw any shade at our own party, but they have been complicit by walking away, by saying we can't compete in Missouri or Iowa, so let's go somewhere else. Now it's on all of us, right?
mm-hmm,
Now you have to talk to somebody about Missouri politics. And that,
mm-hmm,
you know, it, it's because we haven't stopped it.
mm-hmm.
We haven't stopped the bleed, and it continues with people like Mike Johnson.
Right, and ascending to an incredible position of power. It should send a shiver down all our spines that we can't ignore Louisiana in his case, or Missouri in so many other cases, because if this is, I always think of the way they kind of sneak in from the bottom up. It really, they do. I mean, they infiltrate the school boards, and they infiltrate the local state elections, and then all of a sudden you're like, who the hell is Mike Johnson? Why does his wife talk that way? Because it's so weird. And let's just spend a second on that, because a little bit. And if you're not familiar, she has this, I don't know, can you do it? Can you imitate it? Because it's very signature. If you've seen the Duggars, right? So I don't know if you can imitate it, but like if you can try.
I'm not very good at it, but I
Yeah.
was born and raised with it, and this is what it sounds like. And you make yourself small and meek and mild and submissive, and you let, others tell you what's going on. And as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, I know you. You were my Sunday school teacher, and I know that she probably didn't wear pants most of her life. I guarantee you she didn't wear pants and her hair was down to her butt because I know her because she
Mm.
is Michelle Duggar because she is these people. And actually I found out that Mike Johnson and the Duggar that the bad one that's in jail now, they actually had some photo ops together. But
Oh,
the
shocker.
thing is, yeah, the thing is, every fundamentalist I know, as soon as we heard her voice, a shiver went down our spine. And I made a video about that, and it got taken down for bullying.
How is that bullying? I don't understand. It was you just being truthful. I mean,
I
like, there's
know.
parodies all over. I do that Becky Sue. They don't say that that's bullying. I'm from New Jersey. I don't have a Southern accent. I think sometimes they get the trolls out there and they target when it's
Yeah,
a really good, a really effective video. Because I saw it, I was like, this is brilliant, and then I shared it and it was gone. But
it
it
was
was.
gone.
But it opened my eyes because I was like, oh my gosh, that's because everyone saw this video, this interview with Mega Mike and his wife, who was really scary. It was like a Stepford vibe, but beyond that. And when you came and named it, it made
Mhm.
so much sense. It was like, she's talking really weird. She is much smaller and demure. And it was like,
Yes.
the voice was, and it was just disturbing. I mean, it went viral, and your video was amazing. But I was reading about their backstory. I don't know if you know this, the origin of their romance. On their first date, they discovered they both wanted to name their first daughter Hannah. And it was so Jersey, I said daughter. And their first son, Jack. 3 weeks later, Mr. Johnson confessed his love. And then they were engaged for 6 months, or 6 months later. And then exactly 1 year later, they married. I mean, I guess people meet in all sorts of weird circumstances. It's like, oh my God, you want to name your son this? And you're like, I don't know, something about that whole thing just feels like a little bit of a smokescreen or hiding something very sinister behind it.
There is always something that feels off with those folks, and I know why. I was raised around it. Now, not to say that because I had wonderful women in my church who showed me nothing but love, but these sorts of people aren't looking out for just their community members. They're actively attacking folks who are marginalized and oppressed. Like, these aren't nice people
Mm-mm.
who just happen to be fundamentalists. Not at all. These are people who have been reaching for power for a long time, and now they have it.
Yeah, I mean, in her particular case, she's well, I guess she was a conversion therapist. I'm going to put therapy,
Uh-huh.
right? And they have very extreme views on homosexuality, on transgender, on abortion. They want to put doctors in prison and work camps. It's very, very extreme. And like you said, these are not good people, and their agendas are very sinister in those ways.
Right.
And they definitely need to be paid attention to. And MAGA Mike's access to power right now is, we should, again, it's an alarm that we cannot ignore these red states. Plus, I just don't think it is incumbent upon us to take care of all of our citizens, and by just walking away from states where those people need things, like, to think that we just be like, sorry, you're a lost cause. That's not who we are. So it's time for the Democrats to wake up, and all of these ballot measure initiatives that we've seen on abortion in state after state, like Ohio and Kansas, the people are actually speaking pretty loudly when given the chance. And so the
Right.
Democrats need to listen to that. What gives you hope? What, if anything, gives you hope right now moving into 2024 and beyond?
The kids.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's talking to young people who don't care if someone is trans. They don't care if they're gay. They don't care if they need access to healthcare. They want to get that for them. It's the kids who oftentimes don't identify as Democrats. A lot of times they don't like to be called a Democrat, but they vote for progressive, ballot initiatives and that sort of thing, and progressive folks. So they give me hope. And seeing that in every state that vouchers is put on the ballot, it loses. Every state that abortion is put on the ballot, it wins. People are waking up. And Sarah Kenzer is an author from Missouri, and she said something about Missouri. She said it's not red, it's bleeding.
Mm.
And I feel that, because when I talk to folks, they don't want to live under this oppression. They don't want their neighbor who has a child who is gay to be, harmed. They don't want to ban books, and they don't want to attack teachers. when you talk to regular people, they want what all of us want. It's just that we need folks getting out there and telling them the message and telling them this is if you vote for this person, they're going to help you, not hurt you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. It's so important because they're not getting the option. They're not getting the information and they're not getting the option. And that's all indicative of being left behind, being forgotten. And it really, it's not a simple fix, obviously, but it is something that someone like you can lead the charge on. You are leading the charge on. So you give me hope. I mean, the young people definitely give me hope, but you absolutely give me hope. And I want a Jess in every red state. But that part about Missouri bleeding was very profound. And it's very sad because at the end of the day, most Americans really, they don't have an appetite for all of that dysfunction.
Right.
They don't want to attack each other. They don't want to talk about demons and, they want their kids to have good educations. They want them to be happy, healthy. They want roads they can drive on. They want grocery stores they can shop in. It's not as, I don't think we're as divided on these things as Republicans in particular would like us to think, right?
We're not. And that's how you know when when you knock doors and talk to people. And it's going to take, I think that people need to rethink about what it means to be a win, to have a win. I did not win, but I made the Republicans spend $100,000. I made the nominee stay home and knock doors and come to forums and talk to people and answer questions. I didn't let them put that money in their pocket and head to Jeff City or to Columbia and start chipping away at our blue areas. That's why it's important, even when we know this is not going to flip in a cycle. It may not flip in 3 cycles, but you're going to make progress every time, and people around you hear the message, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, it's piece by piece, but if you don't even try, you're never going to get there. So I appreciate you. I just really appreciate you. And what we saw in a lot of the elections in this past November was a lot of rejection of what is happening in your state. But the people of your state and a lot of other red states need the options. They need the possibility. They need people to say this we can achieve this here. This is how. It may not happen overnight. You might have a couple of cycles where you're like, oh shit, we got some scary people up in there. But as we saw in school board after school board all over this country, but Pennsylvania, oh my God, they were like, hey, right-wing extremists, bye-bye. And so and people were like really, really freaking out all over the place because they were scared because crazy shit's been happening. But we the people, we have a hard time being suppressed. We don't like all of that shit. So try and keep us down at your peril. And you can't keep Jess Piper down. All right. So with that, we're going to switch to very quickly a rapid fire random question round. Okay. I do this at the end of all my podcasts. I find it my favorite because it's very, very serious. No, I'm kidding. It's not at all serious, but okay. We do 3 questions, answer whatever, obviously, whatever comes to your mind. Question 1. Usually, actually, my son wants to write these every time. He didn't write these because he was at school, whatever. School. Learning. He learns history, people. I don't even know what that's about, but we're going to do something about it ASAP.
And he probably goes 5 days a week. My God.
Oh my gosh, 5 days a week. And by the way, I think his history teacher, social studies, as they call it, believes that the 2020 election was legitimate. I mean, like, what?
Oh, legit. You got a good one.
That the founding fathers did not imagine AR-15s when they wrote the Second Amendment.
You're kidding.
I know. God. Crazy, revolutionary, these people. But we're going to put him in jail. I'm just kidding. Question 1. Have you ever met a celebrity? Which celebrity would you like to meet?
I have met Claire McCaskill, and I thought, like, she's kind of a celebrity, right?
Yeah.
And a celebrity I would like to meet. I don't know who that would be because I don't really like, I'm not a movie person or anything like that.
Music?
But Claire, I met Jason Kander, Obama. Oh my God, I would die. And I saw a picture of you with Joe Biden.
Oh, what? Yeah. we met one time. Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah, he did not smell my hair. But yeah, but Michelle Obama, right? Like on that list. Jason Kander's awesome. I love him.
I know.
We need to, and Claire McCaskill is legend. Like, she's just, you two combining forces. I mean, I should just see this like blue light coming out of Missouri and just like shining up into the heavens. Like
that would be fantastic.
Yeah. You're like the Wonder Twins. Yeah, I met Bono once. I accidentally yelled at him. That was bad. Yeah, that's a whole story. At the airport, he was tapping my shoulder, and I turned around and I was like, "What do you want?" And he's Bono, and he's like, "Can I get boy?" And I was like, yes,
Yes.
Bono."
You can have anything you want.
Yeah, yep. And then I was on a flight with him, and I was mortified the whole time. Okay, number two. What did you do as a teenager that makes you cringe now?
Oh, well, there's one thing I did that I should never have done. This is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. We used to cruise town, you would drive up and down the road and we would holler at our friends, do whatever. Well, I had been drinking. And anyway, my friends had been throwing out little firecrackers to our friends when we would see them. We would throw them out. This is small town shit. And so finally I've had enough to drink and I was like, give me one of those firecrackers, and it's a bottle rocket, and I light it and throw it out, and there is a cop right there and it blows up in his lap, and of course he chases us, and it was back in the day when there were no cell phones or anything, 1992, so we got away. And it was a fantastic night, but if that police officer from Ozark, Arkansas, that was me, I'm sorry.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Like, that's terrifying. Like, I'm like, what would you have done if you got, what would your parents have said if you got caught doing that? But we did, yeah. Oof.
Yeah, it was back in the day.
But you were meant to learn the lesson of just how scary it was without the lesson of like all the other stuff that would have come with it. So, like,
Right. I learned the lesson to drive really fast, find a country road, and black out, turn off the lights, wait.
perfect. Guys,
Yeah.
listen to Jess. She is wise. She knows. That's just, I imagine your heart just sank as you're like, no. Well, I remember I was, I'll tell this really fast. I was my first year driving, and I was driving back from the prom. We do the prom weekend where you go down the shore. We call it the shore. It's the beach. And like, I was driving all my girlfriends back, and we're all hungover, and there's a police officer. I'm on the Parkway Turnpike, and there's two sections of the Turnpike, local and express. And there's this divider between them. And I was so stupid. The cop's on the local side. I'm on the express side, and I'm flying, and we're all partying, dancing, like, and I'm like, hey, waving at the cop, like, but whatever. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that those two roads would ever merge, which they do, as I now know, and did then, because all of a sudden he was right behind me. Yes, he did not pull me over, which is shocking. I think he was just like a bunch of drunk Jersey girls making it home from the prom. But that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Well, there's a lot of dumb things. But okay, last question. A genie grants you the ability to have infinite amounts of one item. What is it?
Oh my God. Girl, I want to say money to pass it out to everybody.
Yeah.
That sounds awful, but no, it's true. To feed the world, to make sure people have everything they need and just get by, right?
Yeah.
So if it's money, if it's love, if it's good vibes, whatever it is, just to make this world, and this sounds corny, but just to make this world easier on everybody. And I know you're raising kids, I'm raising kids, and I have adult kids, and like, it doesn't go away. The things that you feel about children, it only gets worse as they get older because you don't have constant contact with them. You're worried about them. But if you can make sure that like every young person had a great mindset and what they needed to get by in this world, like I did in the early 90s, like my parents did in the 70s, I think that would be fantastic. I mean, for God's sake, they're trying to pass off van life to our kids, right?
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
can't afford rent.
Right.
So yeah, a genie full of money. Just
Yeah. We need better people to have control of all the money, because we have people who have so much money and they don't think like that. And our generation is like, wait, weren't we supposed to be doing better than our parents? What happened? And our
yeah,
kids are like, what? Wait, what? What's going on? Um,
yeah.
Okay, so people can find you, of course, on your podcast, Dirt Road Democrat, and
Uh-huh.
then you are also Blue Missouri. Where can they find you there? Where can they find Blue
Uh-huh.
Missouri?
BlueMissouri.org, and that's an organization I work with that funds down ballot candidates. We're the only organization that I know of in Missouri that specifically sends money to candidates who don't get any money from the party or anybody else. We fund them through our memberships, and so it's a fantastic organization. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the places.
And I'm not kidding. This is me definitely fangirling. You guys, Jess is a powerhouse. I tell everybody I know. I think that you check all the boxes. You're genuine. You're real. You have your thumb on the pulse of what's going on, but you really understand these issues, and you understand how important democracy is. That we understand that it's a breathing thing that needs constant attention, and you cannot be passive about democracy. We now know that when we are passive about democracy, those who don't have our best interests in mind and in heart, they come in and they take over, and we lose lots of things that we value, because you just get in the mix and you tell it like it is. You keep it real. You are brave and fierce and strong. And I am so grateful for your voice in this world. And I just appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for talking about the difficult things. Thanks for sticking it out when people are so awful and they're so terrible at times, and you just keep going because, like you said, what are we going to do? We can't stop. There's nothing gets better if we stop. So we just keep going forward. And I appreciate you and everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I think that these coalitions that, you get a Missouri, Arkansas, Missouri mom, and you get a mom in New Jersey, and you're like, well, hold on a minute. We do have a lot in common at the end of the day. And we're not going to cede this ground, and we're not going to walk away. They're not going to scare us. And boy, do they ever try. They are real mean to me and Jess. They say awful things about the way that we look. And it really makes me sad. And I don't want to play anymore.
Can you imagine? I'm a grandmother and people talk about me being fat or visiting the Sizzler. And I'm like, dude, I have cookies in my purse right now. I don't need the Sizzler. I don't care.
Like they call this a meth den, and my kids who have now interrupted my podcast like 16 times today they're not allowed to see me. But yes, that keeps me up at night. It really does. Like, if you guys think that this kind of shit is going to move Jess, Piper, or me, good luck with that. We really bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Thank you again to my amazing guest, Jess Piper, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Joe.